Her 9000's game room.
A lot of people tend to pick sides when it comes to consoles, and usually rather than weighing up the strengths and weaknesses of all the sides, they will merely decide which they want to support and use certain easy learned arguments to justify their choice. When Sega coined the term blast processing, what they were actually referring to was the fact that despite a lot of its other flaws and issues, the Mega Drive had a much faster processor than the Super Nintendo. The Nintendo had a Rickower 5A22 processor running at a max of 3.58 MHz. In comparison to this, the main processor in the Mega Drive, or the Sega Genesis as our American friends would know it, was a Motorola 68000 running at 7.6 MHz, so essentially twice the speed. This fact was one of the reasons for the invention of the Super FX chips. The first version of the Super FX chip is clocked with a 21.4 MHz signal, but an internal clock speed divider halves it to 10.7 MHz. Now see, the main reason that the Super Nintendo often seemed to produce more graphically impressive games had nothing to do with its processor. It was due to its superior memory. So with an FX chip in place, the Super Nintendo had the upper hand in all areas. Star Fox, or Starwing as others know it, uses the chip for polygon rendering, but that wasn't all it was capable of. Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island uses the chip for advanced graphical effects, sprite scaling, stretching, and for multiple foreground and background parallax layers to give a greater illusion of depth. Now, as you've probably guessed, I've gone into this sort of detail because Dirt Track FX, the game playing here, has a Super FX chip in it. Okay, Dirt Track FX is a racing video game developed by Sculptured Software and released by Acclaim for the Super Nintendo in 1995. Usually I would try and hold my opinion back and build a case for if the game is good or bad, but right out of the bat I have to admit that I find this game absolutely terrible. There's no story, but then it's a racing game, so you don't really need one. All you need to know is that you're racing on motorbikes on dirt race tracks against other racers. So on the face of it, a motorbike racing game with a Super FX chip in there to handle the graphics sounds like a decent idea. After all, if the Mega Drive can handle a bike game as great as Road Rash with both lower memory and processing power, then the sky should be the limit for a Super FX game on the SNES, shouldn't it? Yep, you would really think so. I find when talking about this game, I can't help but think about Stunt Race FX. You see, there's a lot of similarity there, both racing games, both using a Super FX chip, and both games also chug along at about 15 frames per second. Yet, to me, that doesn't break Stunt Race FX. Stunt Race FX might chug along, but it manages to use charm to get around that. Anyway, back to Dirt Race FX. There seems to be a fair selection of tracks, but they are all unmemorable. The game just seems to have no real sense of feeling. Yes, they've aged badly, and I never played this game around release, so maybe you could argue that that would affect my opinion. But I don't think it does. I just think this game's devoid of charm. The music doesn't sound very good at all, it's incredibly repetitive. The only positive thing I can really say about this game is that it's neat how the music changes depending on if you are in the lead or if someone is ahead of you. The sound effects are nothing to shout about at all, just the kind of throwaway thud noises you would expect. Honestly, I hate to say this, but in my opinion this game is a complete waste of space. The graphics and sound are just not impressive in any sense of the word, but worse than this, it's just not playable or fun. However, I have seen some fan reviews claiming this is a good game, heck even Nintendo Power apparently score it a 3.58 out of 5. Personally for me, I would generously give it a 2 out of 10. I got this game from a market stall for what I thought was a very impressive £3. I didn't think it was so impressive after playing it for even the first 5 minutes. Now, I always try to tell you how much a game is regardless of whether I would recommend it or not. And at this moment in time, the cheapest cart-only copy I could find online of this game was £15. I also saw copies of this game cart, and this is cart only, for as high as £55. I heartily recommend that you forget this game even exists, that you never try to play it, and that you never try to track it down unless you're simply trying to collect every retro game ever. I just can't believe that this thing had a Super FX chip in it. What a terrible waste of silicon. I don't often say this, but If somebody really wanted to take a game apart to get a Super FX chip, this would be the game to take apart. Okay, that's Ker9000 signing off saying keep on gaming.